Greetings, everyone. As always, I pray you're well, staying safe, and well, just continuing to, abide by all the regulations we're having to live under. Boy, it's crazy, man. I don't know. I'm longing for the day when it's going to stop. More than that, I'm waiting for Jesus to come back for me, and I pray He's coming back for you. And I'm sure most of you that respond to these videos, I'm sure you're on the right path. But we're living in some very crucial times, and today I wanted to study a little bit about government. You might say, well, what does politics have to do with Scripture? Well, Jesus is the one who instituted government. Okay, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. I want to run a few clips by you. But there's a move right now, and it's a strong move to defund the police, getting rid of the cops. Listen, cops are retiring by the tens and 20s and I don't know, hundreds maybe. They're seeking early retirement because they're getting they're talking bad about them, and so hey, I wouldn't want to be a cop either, I mean, that's crazy. But I wanted to show you some clips in case you're not seeing them, because like I mentioned, CNN, MSNBC, those liberal news media is not going to show you these things, this violence that's taking place. Not really. You'll find it on the internet if they don't start taking those off, because there's issues with that as well. There's so many things going on, guys, and if you're not really paying attention, then you really don't even know what I'm really talking about. But I'm here to tell you, man, these are some dire times. We're in some very difficult days, and on the one hand, I say, hey, let it come, man. Jesus is coming that much sooner. But we don't know that. We don't know when He's coming. We might have to be here another 5-10 years. And what's our country going to look like? And it's up to us. It's up to people thinking right to help shape the direction that this country is going in. I mentioned last time, this is the greatest country in the world. And it's sad to say, the Democrats are shouting it down, and because they have an agenda. They want to transform the United States, and it was all based on racism, and it's not about racism at all. And if you're paying attention, really it's the other side that's being racist. And I'm going to show you some clips, and maybe that'll help you change your mind. But listen, maybe you've never voted. Well, this time around, this is very important that you vote. And I'm pushing for that you would vote Republican, because I think they're the ones that are on the right side of things right now. And I gave you my reasons for voting Republican. But, this defunding the police, getting rid of cops, doesn't do with how they think, man. They want to legalize drugs. They already did the marijuana, but they always talk about legalizing heroin and having these little places where, tecatos go hang out, or heroin addicts go hang out. And, there's just a bunch of crazy stuff that's going on. Like I said, if you're not paying attention or listening, you miss all this stuff. Because that's just crazy, man, the things that they're saying. They want to get rid of prisons. They're letting out criminals. I mean, hey, there was a time in my life I was on the wrong side of the law. I would have longed for this kind of environment, because it would have made it easier for me to do the things that I was doing. Hey, no cops, no jail time, get out of jail free cards. I mean, that's what they're doing. A lot of cities are pushing that, man. So there's a lot to what's going on in our country today. And again, they're wanting to change the whole setup that we've had for the last 250 years. They just want to upend the whole thing, and we need to start speaking out. That's why I'm talking about it, because you know what? It's important to me. It might not be affecting you now, but there's a lot of laws that they've passed. Democrats have passed that if you're a Christian, you don't agree with it, but they got passed. Why? Maybe you didn't vote that year. Or maybe not enough Christians voted, or they voted the wrong way. Because I'm a Democrat, so I vote Democrat. Democrats are for the poor. Jesus said the poor you're going to have with you always. That means they're always going to be around, and we as Christians got to do our best to help them, right? But listen, man, this move today, this Black Lives Matter, these Antifa groups, and those are the racist folks. If you want to speak about racism, just look at the action. Look at what they're doing. I played these clips. Let me show you the clips, because then I'll start talking, and then I'll run out of time. But I want to share with you what Scripture has to say about government. I'll be back in just a bit.
Democrats at the DNC openly fantasizing about a world without police and prisons. Wow. Let's watch this fantasy unfold.
Why can't Why can't folks imagine a world without the cops? Why can't folks imagine a world without prisons? Why can't people expand their imaginations to include community care, to include an abolitionist future? And I'm talking about like for real abolition, not just watered down DNC version of abolition. We're talking about abolishing the police. We're talking about abolishing ICE. We're talking about abolishing prisons.
Okay, we all know too well what would happen in a world without law, order, safety, and security. How do you ever pursue happiness if you don't have law and order? Safety.
Turning a deaf ear to the needs of our families and our communities, hold them accountable. Well, make the phone call, send the email, show up. You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives. We are managing against converging public health and economic crises amid a national reckoning on racial injustice in this country. Communities from Boston to Portland and everywhere in between are rising up to demand accountability and divestment from broken systems.
It's not just says security on it, has not been arrested. Many on the internet seem to know exactly who he is, but as of tonight, no arrests at all. That's what Portland, Oregon is like right now. A major American city has fallen to the mob. We've got much more video from Portland. Some of it we're not going to show you. It's too awful. The rest of the media are ignoring all of this. These are Joe Biden's voters screaming slurs as they kick people in the head. This is the media's team. They don't want you to know what nonviolent protests actually look like. When BLM lunatics call for the murder of police, and they do, the other networks act like it never happened. Here's yet another clip CNN will not be playing tonight.
Your mother's umbilical cord should have wrapped around your neck and choked you just the way you choked George Floyd, you filthy animal. I know you got a gun, but so do I. Go ahead and shoot me. I'm shooting back. Am I lying, my comrade? You shoot me, I'm gonna shoot you back.
Rocked by another violent weekend, the situation in Portland dissolved into chaos yet again overnight while protesters demand drastic changes in policing in Seattle. And at the same time, gun violence is plaguing cities like Washington, D.C. and Chicago.
Garrett Tenney is live in scene in Austin, Texas. An armed man shot and killed after approaching a car that drove into a crowd of demonstrators. And more violence in Chicago, where at least 51 people were shot just over the weekend. Let's bring in Byron York.
Now, Portland police, look at this in slow motion. Look at that. Police telling Fox News, we just got this update, the man is recovering from non-life-threatening injuries. An investigation underway. Well, we have the videotape. Maybe we can find the perpetrators of this. And so far, no arrests. Mayor of Portland marching with the anarchists. A lot of good he's been doing out there. 80 days. The president's begging, let me send in help so you can restore law and order. It gets rejected. Despite the surging violence, extreme democratic socialists, they're now doubling down on this destructive agenda, even calling for more unrest in our city streets. Listen to
deadly violence on the streets of Chicago. At least 30 people shot, 9 killed, including a 9-year-old boy who was shot to death on Friday. Police say the murders, the rate jumped 139% in July compared to 2019. Residents now demanding action.
All of these is friends. I just want them to be seen because they need to be seen. They need to know they're not the problem. The killing of innocent children and women and elders got to stop.
Enough is enough. Why we got to keep on burying our babies? They don't even stand a chance.
There is suddenly indiscriminate violence throughout the country. It's on the rise. Our leaders have decided to accept it. But maybe this crime will get the entire country to pause and ask, where are we going? It was the execution-style murder of a 5-year-old boy last week in North Carolina.
5-year-old Cannon Hennons was riding his bike outside of his Wilson, North Carolina home over the weekend when police say a neighbor, 25-year-old Darius Sessoms, came out and shot him in the head.
Cannon was the kind of kid that was always polite.
You just could not help to be changed when you met Cannon.
Really, everybody just wants answers, for why this was done.
Cannon's father is confused by his son's murder, saying there's no explanation for why Sessoms would target his son.
there was never anything between me and him, any bad blood whatsoever.
And last night, Black Lives Matter Chicago held a rally in support of those who were arrested and demanded that they be released. One organizer justified the looting and destruction, saying the businesses have insurance and whatever was taken is reparations the Black community is owed.
People in this city are struggling through a pandemic, so I don't care if somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes.
However, there took to the streets of one residential neighborhood demanding that white residents give up their homes and leave. Take a look.
Give up your house, give Black people back their home. You're sitting there comfortably as if you didn't have gentrified this neighborhood. I used to live in this neighborhood. But I used to live in this neighborhood. I grew up here and my family was pushed out. And you're sitting up there having a good time with your other white friends.
So, let's not act like you just are oblivious to as you knew about it all along. And you were okay with it. But guess what? We're not. And we're bringing it to your door. So what the you plan to do about it?
I had the windows falling apart.
Guess what? Terry Nadler.
Right here is another example of white men feeling comfortable. I bet you've never had a struggle in your life. Your class does not represent justice and liberty for all.
Neighborhood this week, one of the many cities that are run by a Democrat that has been plagued with unrest and with demonstrations, and we've seen a lot of that across the country. Some of them have turned quite violent. Just last night, protesters in that city faced off with federal agents outside a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement building. In the 80 days since these protests began, police in Portland have been forced to declare riots 17 times, which gives them a little bit more authority to move in. And in the city of Chicago, local reports state that the unrest, the violence, and the looting there may be one of the reasons that police officers are retiring at unusually rapid rates, which is something we're seeing in many cities as well. So meanwhile, you've got the mayor of Chicago coming under fire now after the Chicago Tribune reported that she had banned protesters from demonstrating on her block.
That given the threats that I have personally received, given the threats to my home and my family, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they are protected. And I make no apologies whatsoever for that. I think that residents of the city, understanding the nature of the threats that we are receiving on a daily basis, understand that I have a right to make sure that my home is secure.
Well, there it is there, guys. That was just a sample, a small sample of what's going on in our country today, and it's serious. It's happening. And like I said, it's just a small portion. I want you to see, I want you to get a feel for what's going on. In case you haven't been watching the news, I watch a lot of news, so I try to stay informed with everything that's going on. So I know that MSNBC, CNN, they're not running a lot of these videos because it sheds a bad light on the Democrat Party. And I don't know, for me, I mean, that upsets me because they're not being honest with the people. They're just focusing in on power, and the more they allow this just to go on, I guess it sheds a bad light on Donald Trump. And they're trying to shed a bad light on Donald Trump, but really it's a bad light on them because they're not even speaking out against it. They're allowing it to take place. And I mentioned before, the majority of these cities and states that all this is happening in, they're run by Democrats. They're the ones that have the authority to shut it down. And Donald Trump has been offering help, to bring in the feds to help out, and they don't want his help, but they don't want to shut it down. And that to me is mind-boggling. Why wouldn't you want to just cut that off? You could have just, it never should have gotten to this place or gotten this far if they would have come together, both parties, and say, let's put a stop to this. And we wouldn't have all this. You would have saved lives. A lot of people wouldn't have died. Excuse me. A lot of people wouldn't have lost their lives. You know, the innocent children that are being killed, all in the name of racism. It's not about racism. It's about power. And these people are wicked. They're evil. They'll stop at nothing just to get power. And, you know, I guess I'm campaigning for Donald Trump because I want you, as if you're a Christian, to understand, listen, we need to be on the right side of things. And maybe you've never voted before. Well, you need to vote this season. Because if the wrong people get in power, you know, we're going to be in trouble, especially if they control all three arms of our government, the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency. Right now, the Congress, the majority is Democrat. They're the ones that make up the laws, and they're the ones that are in charge of money. They hold the purse, money-wise. And then the Senate, you know, once the law is passed, it goes to the Senate, and you might know it already. I don't know, maybe you don't. But the laws they pass in the Congress goes to the Senate. Then if the Senate gives it a thumbs up or thumbs down, it depends whether or not it goes to the president. If it goes to the president, he has the authority to veto it. But anyway, just imagine if this group of people now, because they're being pushed by this younger generation, these liberal men and women that you know, they're all for all the things that God is against, many of them. And they name the name of God, but there is no God, especially the God of the Bible in their minds, okay? They got their own God that they made up. And, you know, it's crazy. But anyway, you know, they're pushing defunding the police. This is what happens when you have no law. It's just lawlessness. You know, it's chaos, it's anarchy. And that's what they're wanting. They're wanting to overthrow the government, I guess, you know, and just create a new government, a new form of, a new way of doing things. And we live in the greatest country in the world. And, you know, there's no other country like America. And yet they want to destroy, or they're trying to upend everything that this country has stood for 250 years, you know, all in the name of racism. And that's just a lie. That's deception, man. And it's like every voting cycle, that's what they throw at us, racism. They call Donald Trump racist because he calls it a China virus. They say he's racist. And, you know, they don't look back in February, January, February, March, CNN, MSNBC, the people that are saying Donald Trump's racist because of the Chinese virus and the Democratic Party, they were calling it the China virus back in February. They themselves, you see the hypocrisy. And like I said, I watch a lot of news, man, so I want to be informed, you know, to see what the heck's going on in our country. And I told you why I'm so, how can I say it? I'm so concerned is because, you know, Jesus could be coming. And a lot of things that are happening, I believe, are a precursor or a preview of what the country's going to look like and the world right before Jesus comes back. So we're close. I think we're really close. And we can't put a date on it, but hey, we need to be paying attention to what's happening. You say, well, how can I make a difference? Just vote on the right side of things, man. The Democrats are promoting abortion. And, you know, my daughter just had a baby. And, you know, when I stop to think about it, I go, man, the Democrats are pushing the idea of allowing abortion up to the 9th month. Imagine that, a 9th month, an infant, taking the life of an infant, all because it's the law and you can do it. That's murder. That's crazy. And you say, man, that sounds horrifying. Well, it is. It's evil. And yet people side with that party. And that's what they're promoting, along with the gay rights movement. You know, hey, I got nothing wrong. I mean, I don't have a problem if that's your sexual preference and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But don't try to convince the rest of us that it's okay and start passing laws to benefit what you do. Just do it yourself and, you know, leave the rest of us alone. But no, they're passing laws that benefit the gay rights movement. And I don't want to get off track, but this is, you know, listen, defunding the police. That is crazy. You're going against God when you start wanting to get rid of the authorities. Let me read you the scripture. Romans 13:1. It says, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities. There it is, politics. For those of you who say politics and religion don't mix, or politics and the Bible don't mix. Well, right here, God instituted it. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no other authority except from God. And the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Who appointed them? God. Whose idea was it? God's, to put in authority. Without laws, it would be, you get what you get, what you're seeing. And then it says, therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God. And those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. So again, there's consequences if you break the law. But God is saying if you resist, you're resisting the ordinance of God. And then he says, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. In other words, if you don't break the law, you don't have nothing to worry about. You know, for the most part, they're going to leave you alone. I've been pulled over before for I wasn't doing anything. And, you know, I just showed my license, okay, and going along my merry way. But when you resist and you start, you know, getting a little crazy, I've been on that side too. And, you know, the cops got to do what they got to do. And yeah, there are some who are messed up in how they do it. I mean, but that's not all the cops. They want to get rid of the whole thing, man. That's crazy. And so you need to be on the right side of things. But basically, it's saying, you know, obey the laws and you'll be okay. It says, do what is good and you will have praise from the same. It says, for he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is God's minister and avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Now here, God took it to the highest level. He's talking about corporal punishment. He's talking about the death penalty. That's New Testament. But see, some states, we have it here in California, the death penalty, but we never use it really, and other states are the same way. We never use it. And the reason they don't use or implement the death penalty, you know, my belief has always been when someone's found of a crime, guilty of a crime that warrants the death penalty, it should be executed. It should be carried out right away. I think that would end a lot of the crazy stuff that goes on, the murders and these heinous acts that take place that some people do. If they would carry out that penalty right away, immediately, I think it would be a deterrent from people to, you know, to quit doing it. You know, and I mean, that's my opinion, but I think, you know, this society, somewhere along the way, we became more moral than God. You know, if you think about it, what you're really doing by not executing or exercising the death penalty when it's warranted, you're basically saying you're more holier than God, or you're more moral than God. Just think how crazy that is. And I'm reading it to you. This is New Testament. So he says, he doesn't bear the sword in vain. That's what he's talking about. For he is God's minister and avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore, you must be subject not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. So again, he's saying, listen, there's consequences if you break the law. And then also, we obey not just so that, we know we don't want to get in trouble, but we obey for conscience sake. We want to be right with God. We want to be thinking the way God thinks. And he's the one who instituted the laws and the governing authorities. So that's what I wanted to just share with you, give you a little bit of scripture to show you that there is politics in scripture, okay? And we have to obey the laws. I mean, the only time we can resist a law is when it goes against God's laws. When it goes against what God has to say about a thing, then we're going against God. Then we're going against God, okay? And so there's plenty of scripture that talks about, again, murdering infants in the womb and your sexual orientation, okay? I mean, adultery is the same thing between a man and a woman. I mean, adultery is adultery. It has the same penalties as homosexuality. If you read the scripture, I keep saying it, and we'll have to do it one day, and I'll give you the scriptures. But the thing today is, this is serious, guys. I pray you're taking it serious. You say, well, why are you so concerned? It's because it's going to change. We, as the people of the United States, we're the ones that help shape the direction that this country goes in. And the rest of the world is looking to us for guidance and leadership. And I'm afraid that these liberal individuals, I mean, they're in our sports teams, they're in our tech companies. The Chinese government, I mean, they do business with China. They make billions of dollars. The tech companies, Facebook, YouTube, Amazon, all these tech companies, they make a lot of money with China, but they won't shut them down. They're siding with Black Lives Matter. They're siding with this agenda, this movement of overthrowing the government, if you will, the way we do things in the United States. They're in bed with the communist China, the communist Chinese government. The sports players. I mean, they're not talking about how China treats their people as far as racism goes. There's no protests in China going on. You think protests like this China would allow it? No, they'll just take you out the way they did at Tiananmen Square decades ago. The people are in bondage over there to their evil government. And God is the one who placed all the governments in place. I mean, just think about that for a moment. So no government is better. Some government is better than no government. And, you know, we're just blessed because we live in the United States. But if we're not careful and we let the wrong people get in power, then we're gonna turn into be controlled by China, if you will. That's the way it seems, man. We're already starting to look like them, wearing masks all the time. I mean, come on. I mean, just think about it. And then you've got these people thinking that they're entitled to this because their ancestors were slaves. And yeah, it was messed up what happened, but come on, that was several hundred, 400 plus years ago. And things have changed since the 60s, you know? And you're free in this country. I mean, if you hate this country that much, they're burning the flag. They're talking about the flag. I mean, I wave my flag out at the front of the house, and you know, it just saddens me, man, to think that people are that dense and not see what the heck's going on. So, to this audience, to you that are paying attention, those of you that know me and others that don't, I mean, that see these videos, listen, this is a very important election, and it's not about a person; it's about an ideology. And the Democrat Party, they have gone way to the left, to the liberal side, and they're promoting and they're pushing their agenda on the rest of us. And if they get in power, we're going to be in trouble. If they get in power, we are going to be in trouble. We're already seeing a sample of what's going on. And, you know, I'm going to leave it there for now because there's so much going on. I pray that you're paying attention to the news. And again, I'm promoting the Fox News channel because they're balanced. They'll say both sides. They slam Donald Trump at times. They slam both sides. And you, as an individual, you have to be informed. You need to make an informed decision. You need to know what's going on. You can't just get little snippets and clips of the fake news that, like Donald Trump calls it. It is fake news. They're lying. They just lie to us, man, and with knowing that they're going to get away with it. They're hypocrites, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore because they know people aren't paying attention. So I guess I'm doing my little bit to inform you that this time around, we need to think about what's happening because this country will change if the wrong people get in power. So I'm gonna leave it there for now, and I'll catch you on the next run. All right, so have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time. Oh, and by the way, the snoring on the last video, that was my dog, Stella. I'll show you a picture of her next time. Okay, we'll see you next time.